Hello and welcome to We Talk a Good Game. I'm David.
And I'm Joel.
This episode focuses on the gameplay for a combat encounter in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. I recently started a new group of players on their first Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay adventure, and the main purpose of this video is to explain combat mechanics by showing step-by-step gameplay from their first combat encounter. Before we get to the step-by-step gameplay, however, we do offer a brief introduction of the characters involved, followed by a quick roleplay example that leads to the combat encounter itself.
We have time markers listed below in the comments if you would like to skip straight to the combat encounter.
Of course, that means you'll miss out on the exceptional theatrical prowess of my player group.
Alright, let's get this battle started.
Sounds good. First, let's meet the characters involved in this epic encounter, starting with the 4-player characters.
Well met, madlings. My name is Bronn. No pain, no gain.
You got some vermin needs exterminated? Just call on me, Joel, and my small but vicious dog, Jeffrey.
I am your humble initiate, Paleari. May Shalia's blessing rain down upon you, keeping you healthy.
My name is Brianna. Let's turn up the heat.
And finally, the creatures I, as the Game Master, or GM, am pitting against them, a vicious pack of beastmen. This is a Gore beastman. He is the pack's commander. And these 4 beastmen are his Ungor henchmen. Now that you know our cast, let's start our encounter. The Baron has charged you all to deliver a very important message to his brother's fortified manor on the other side of Drakewald Forest. He has corroborated the rumors that Drakewald has recently become infested with herds of pillaging beastmen. You set off early this morning and been traveling for hours with nothing but the sounds of leaves rustling and occasional random woodland creatures. Given the crude directions the Baron provided you, you believe yourselves to be nearing the manor.
How long are we going to keep trekking through this accursed forest? Who does the Baron think we are, a bunch of bloody wood elves?
Well, your ears are kind of pointy.
Be quiet, or I'll be cooking that yappy little dog of yours for dinner.
I'm not one for interrupting dinner plans in the making, but the Baron did say the forest is infested with beastmen. Shouldn't we keep the racket down just a little bit?
I, for one, would appreciate some peace. Why not let's take a moment and walk quietly and silently ask for Shalia's blessing.
Okay. Hey, Bronn. Knock knock.
Who's there?
Winter ice.
Winter ice who?
Winter ice coming.
As you all marvel at Joel's keen wit, you turn a bend in the road to see the manor's gatehouse standing 50 or so yards before you. A 15-foot-high wall of crumbling stone spreads out from the gatehouse, protecting the manor. You don't see anyone at the gate or upon the wall.
Hold up, everybody. This isn't right. This time of day there should at least be some activity. Maybe they were attacked by beastmen. We should take a moment and equip our weapons. I carefully look around, listening for any activity.
This is an easy level difficulty check, so only add 1 challenge die to your pool.
Success! What do I see or hear?
You take a careful step or two ahead of your companions and begin carefully scrutinizing the gatehouse and its surrounding walls. After intense observation, you're left uneasy as you perceive absolutely no signs of life whatsoever. Straining even harder, you're interrupted by the faint crackling of branches behind. Turning to shush your companions, you're abruptly taken aback. Behind them are several misshapen Ungor bursting from the underbrush. Leading them is a more powerful Gore beastman with huge, curling, gold-tipped ram horns. The Gore is wielding a daunting, blood-pocked battle axe. The beastmen all raise their heads and release a saliva-spraying howl of challenge as they leap to the attack. Alright, let's roll initiative. The scene is set. From this point forward, I will be doing a step-by-step gameplay of the combat encounter. The encounter will include melee, ranged, magic, blessing, and defensive actions. The combat encounter will occur between our 4-player characters and the beastmen controlled by myself, the Game Master. The 4 players have set up their areas. We've already met Bronn, our dwarf Trollslayer, Joel, our human Ratcatcher and his small but vicious dog, Paleari, our human priest initiate, and Brianna, our human Apprentice Wizard. Behind my screen, I have cards representing the Gore and his Ungor henchmen, and am prepared for the attack. You will notice I use 6-sided dice to keep track of the creature's aggression, cunning, and expertise, rather than the provided tracking tokens. You may recall when we left our roleplay example, our intrepid adventurers had just been set upon by a Gore and his 4 Ungor henchmen. At the start of the combat encounter, initiative is rolled to determine turn order. In this case, all 4 players will roll for their characters individually. As the Game Master or GM, I will roll once for the Gore attacker and I will roll once for the group of 4 Ungor henchmen. Since the Ungor beastmen have been declared henchmen, they act as a single group, following the henchmen rules found on page 49 of the Game Master's Guide. For combat encounters, agility is used for initiative checks. Because of the beastmen's special ambush ability, they will add 1 yellow expertise die to their initiative rolls. Here are the results of the initiative rolls. The Gore has 4 agility, so I add 4 blue characteristic dice to his pool, and 1 yellow for his ambush ability. I roll 4 successes out of his 5 dice. The Ungor henchmen also have 4 agility and ambush, so they have the same dice pool as the Gore. I roll 3 successes out of their 5 dice. Joel the Ratcatcher has 4 agility, so his dice pool consists of 4 blue characteristic dice. His player rolls 4 blue characteristic dice and receives 3 successes. Bronn, the party's Trollslayer, has 3 agility, so Bronn's player rolls 3 blue dice and receives 2 successes out of his 3 dice. Paleari, the initiate, also has 3 agility, and her player rolls 2 successes out of her 3 dice. And finally, Brianna, the Apprentice Wizard, also with 3 agility, rolls 1 success with her dice. As the GM, I choose to use red tracking tokens to represent the creatures and white tracking tokens to represent the player characters, and I set up the initiative track as follows. Since the Gore's initiative roll resulted in 4 successes, I place a red tracking token here. The Ungor henchman rolled 3, so I place a red token here. Joel, the Ratcatcher's player, rolled 3 successes, so I place a white tracking token here. The Trollslayer and the Initiate both rolled a 2, and the Apprentice Wizard a 1, so I place white trackers here, here, and here. The initiative track shows that a creature will go first, a player second. Whenever a player's marker and a creature's marker share the same initiative order, the player acts first. A creature goes third, and the remaining player character's heroes will then go 4th, 5th, and 6th. Then the round ends and the next round will begin back up at the top of the initiative order. It is important to note that once the initiative tracker is set, it no longer matters who rolled what for initiative. The fact that Joel, our Ratcatcher, rolled the 3 does not necessarily mean he must activate first. Any player character can take this spot. It's a group decision. The same goes for creatures and NPCs. In this case, as the GM, I can choose either the Gore or the Ungor to go first. Now that the initiative tracker is set, starting with a creature, each player character and creature will take turns based on initiative. Each player's character's turn consists of 3 phases. A beginning of turn phase, followed by an action phase, and wrapped up by the end of turn phase. The beginning of turn phase is where the player will receive 1 free stance adjustment. Additional stance adjustments may be made for 1 stress each. During the action phase, the player may perform maneuvers and a single action. The player receives 1 free maneuver. Additional maneuvers may be made for 1 fatigue each. The player may perform a single action from amongst his or her available action cards. The player may perform his or her action and maneuvers in any order. During the end of turn phase, the player removes 1 tracking token from each recharging action card. Magic and divine characters also gain or lose power and favor toward reaching equilibrium. Finally, the player flips their activation token on their stance tracker so it is on the grayed out side, indicating the player has completed their turn.
Enough jibber jabber. Let's start the combat already.
As our initiative results show, a creature will go first. As a GM, I choose to start with the Gore Beastman and decide he will use his Fearsome Charge action card. I announce this to the players. With a bleeding growl, the battle-thirsty Gore starts his Fearsome Charge towards Bronn, your dwarf Trollslayer. I move the Gore stand-up so that it is engaged with the Trollslayer and begin to assemble my dice pool. Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay's core mechanic is based on the idea that after the dice pool is rolled and the challenges and successes have canceled each other out, if there are any success symbols remaining, the task succeeds. When I announce that Bronn is my target, he decides since his weapon is already equipped, he's going to parry. Bronn's player adds 2 recharge tokens to his parry card. This forces me to add 1 black misfortune die to my pool. Fearsome Charge uses weapon skill versus target defense. Weapon skill is based on strength. The Gore's strength is 5, so I would start with 5 blue characteristic dice in my pool. But since the Gore is Reckless 1, I switch out 1 of my blue die for 1 red Reckless die. The Gore's ambush ability allows me to add 1 white fortune die since the Trollslayer has not yet acted. The action card itself adds 1 black misfortune die for its difficulty modifier. The Trollslayer is in close range, making it an easy challenge level, so I add 1 purple challenge die. The Trollslayer has 2 defense, 1 from his Combat Alertness talent card, and 1 from his Trollslayer career ability card, so I add 2 more black misfortune die to the Gore's pool. The Gore is set on causing some serious carnage, so I decide to use some of the Gore's bonus die. I use his 1 expertise to add 1 yellow expertise die to my pool. I also use 2 of his 4 aggression, allowing me to add 2 more white fortune dice. I roll all of the dice in my pool and then evaluate the results of the roll. The 1 challenge cancels out 1 of the 4 successes. The 2 banes cancel out 2 of the 3 boons. So I end up with 3 successes and 1 boon. So the Fearsome Charge hits the Trollslayer. Since it was a success, I must place 3 recharge tokens on Fearsome Charge. My attack was a success, so now I'm ready to calculate damage. I add 5 for the Gore's strength, 4 for its damage rating, and 3 from the Fearsome Charge card's success line. I then subtract 4 for the Trollslayer's toughness, and subtract 1 more for his soap value, a total of 7 damage. Bronn wisely decides he does not want to receive 7 wounds, so he places 5 recharge tokens on Shrug It Off, reducing his wounds to 5. Still, ouch. The next to act on the initiative track is a player character. The party decides that Joel, the Ratcatcher, will be the first to step up. During Joel's beginning of turn phase, he decides to move his activation token to the first space on the Reckless side of his stance track. During his action phase, Joel's small but vicious dog is allowed 1 free maneuver and uses it to engage the Gore, putting Bite and Shake into effect. Joel then announces he will be using his Threading the Needle action card on the Gore. And since he is 1 space into Reckless, he uses the red side of the action card. Based on the card's special rule, Joel uses his free maneuver as a prepare maneuver, removing one black misfortune die from the card's difficulty modifier, and then he begins to assemble his dice pool. Threading the needle uses ballistic skill versus target defense. Ballistic skill is based on agility, and Joel's, the Ratcatcher's, agility is 4. So he would start with 4 blue characteristic dice in his pool. But since Joel is one space into reckless, he switches out one of the blue die for one reckless die. Joel is trained in ballistic skill, so he adds one yellow expertise die to his pool. The action card itself adds one black misfortune die for the difficulty modifier. Again, this would normally be 2 misfortune dice, but he performed the prepare maneuver, reducing it by 1. As a GM, I tell him this is an easy level difficulty check, so he adds 1 purple die to his pool. The Gore's defense is 1, so Joel adds another black misfortune die. Joel is worried over his ally Bronn taking such a big hit, so he decides to use one of his 3 fortune points from his pool, thereby adding 1 white fortune die to his dice pool. His small but vicious dog's bite and shake adds 1 final white fortune die. Joel then evaluates his roll. So after the challenges and successes cancel out, and boons and banes cancel out, Joel is left with 2 successes, 1 boon, and 1 Sigmar's Comet. He decides to use the Comet as an additional boon. Since Threading the Needle succeeded, he places 2 recharge tokens on his Threading the Needle action card. Joel is now ready to calculate damage. Joel starts by adding 4 for his agility. Then he adds 5 for his staff sling's damage rating. And finally, the card's success line states he hit for +2 damage, so he adds 2 more. He is currently dealing 11 damage. He takes that 11 damage and subtracts 5 for the Gore's toughness, and further subtracts 2 for the Gore's soak value, thus dealing my Gore a total of 4 damage. I place 4 wounds on my Gore. Usually, the GM will place down 1 wound card and then place 1 marker on the 1 wound card for each wound. I prefer to use a 20-sided die to keep count. Joel the Ratcatcher's 2 boons will also allow another engaged ally to add 2 white fortune die to his or her next attack. Remember this when we get to Bronn the Trollslayer's turn. It is now Joel's end of turn phase. So he removes 1 marker from his Threading the Needle action card and flips his activation token to its gray side, thereby ending his turn. The next to act are the Ungor henchmen. As a GM, I have them use their maneuver to engage with the Ratcatcher. I announce they will be dealing a savage strike targeting Joel the Ratcatcher, who has just attacked their leader. Since the Ratcatcher's sling staff is both a ranged and a melee weapon, Joel decides to parry and places 2 recharge tokens on his parry action card. This will force me to add a black misfortune die to my Ungor henchman's dice pool. I now fill the rest of the pool. Savage Strike uses weapon skill versus target defense. Weapon skill is based on strength, and the Ungor's strength is 4, so I start with 4 blue characteristic dice in my pool. Since there are 4 Ungor henchmen in the group, I add 3 extra white fortune dice in the pool representing the extra henchmen. Ambush would allow me to add 1 white fortune die if Joel the Ratcatcher had not already acted in this encounter, but he has. The Ungor engage with Joel, so it's an easy difficulty level check, and I add 1 purple challenge die. I then add 1 black misfortune die to the pool for Joel's defense. The Ungor are motivated to aid their Gore leader, so I decide to use some of their Ungor bonus dice. I add their 1 yellow expertise die and use 2 of their 3 aggression, allowing me to add 2 more white fortune dice. I then evaluate the results. The yellow expertise die results in a righteous success. This allows me to roll an additional yellow expertise die. So after challenges and successes cancel out, and boons and banes cancel out, my Ungor henchmen are left with 3 successes. I don't need to place any recharge tokens on Savage Strike action card, as its recharge rating is 0. I am now ready to calculate the damage the Ungor will deal. The success line on Savage Strike states the henchman will hit for normal damage plus 1 critical. So I add 4 for the Ungor's strength, 4 for their damage rating, and then I subtract 3 for Joel's toughness and 1 for his soak value, dealing Joel a total of 4 damage. Joel's player places 4 wounds on his Ratcatcher and flips one of them over for the plus 1 critical. It is important to note the plus 1 critical does not add an additional wound, it simply flips one of the 4 wounds over to its critical side. In Joel's case, the critical wound is exposed weakness, and until healed, it will reduce his soak value by 1. It is now a player character's turn, and the players decide as a group that Paleari, the party's initiate, will go next. During Paleari's beginning of turn phase, she adjusts her stance once for free, and then takes 2 stress tokens to adjust it 2 more times down the conservative side of her track. She then starts her action phase and declares she is going to use Cure Wounds on Bronn the Trollslayer. Since she is on the conservative side of her stance track, she uses the green side of her action card. Cure Wounds uses Invocation skill versus target injury level. Invocation skill is based on Fellowship, and Paleari's Fellowship is 4, so she starts with 4 blue characteristic dice in her pool. But since Paleari is 3 spaces into her conservative stance, she switches out 3 of the blue dice for 3 green conservative dice. Paleari is trained in Invocation, so she adds 1 yellow expertise die to her pool. She is also specialized in Invocation Shalia's Blessings, so she adds 1 white fortune die. Her career as an initiate also adds 1 white fortune die. The action card itself adds 1 purple challenge die for its difficulty modifier. I tell her this will be an easy difficulty check, so she adds 1 additional purple die to her pool. Bronn's injury level is lightly wounded, so Paleari adds 1 more purple challenge die. If she were engaged with an enemy, she would have to add yet another. Due to the surprise attack, the shock of Joel and Bronn's wounds, and trying to calmly heal in the overall general chaos, I, as the GM, ask her to add 1 additional black misfortune die. To help ensure her success, Paleari decides to use 1 of her 3 fortune points, adding 1 white fortune die to her pool. Paleari then evaluates her roll. After challenges and successes cancel out, and boons and banes cancel out, Paleari is left with 3 successes, 1 boon, and 1 Sigmar's Comment. Cure Wounds requires 6 favor. Paleari started the encounter at equilibrium with only 4 favor, but thanks to her Faith specialty card, she gained 1 favor when her ally Joel received his critical wound. She takes the 5 favor tokens from her pool and places them on her Cure Wounds action card. The Cure Wounds will activate once 1 more favor becomes available. Paleari decides to curry favor this turn. Casting spells and invoking blessings allow spellcasters and divine characters to channel power or curry favor during the same turn they are invoking or casting an action card, as long as they are willing to add an extra purple challenge die. This is the only occurrence I am aware of in the game where a player may play more than 1 action card on his or her turn. Curry favor is an unopposed piety check. Piety relies on willpower, so Paleari would start with 4 blue characteristic die in her pool, but since she's 3 into her conservative stance, she replaces 3 of her blue die with green conservative die. Her talent card, Fervent Belief, adds 1 white fortune die to all her piety checks, so she adds another white die. I tell her this will be an easy difficulty check, so she adds 1 purple die to her pool. The action card itself adds 1 purple challenge die for its difficulty modifier. Finally, she adds 1 more purple challenge die since she's already invoked a blessing this turn. Paleari then evaluates her roll. After challenges and successes cancel out, and boons and banes cancel out, Paleari is left with 2 successes. As Curry Favor's success line dictates, she receives 3 favor. 1 token is immediately placed on Cure Wounds, and Cure Wounds takes effect. The other 2 favor tokens go into her personal pool. Now Paleari's Cure Wounds resolves. She places 5 recharge tokens on her Cure Wounds card, so it will be a while before she can invoke it again. The success line shows her 3 successes cause Bronn to recover 4 normal wounds. She uses her Sigmar's Comet toward the card's side effect, healing him for yet another wound. Bronn removes 5 wounds and is completely healed. Paleari had a crossbow equipped at the start of the encounter. She uses her free maneuver to switch to her dagger in case she needs to parry. Paleari then starts her end of turn phase. She removes a counter from Cure Wounds. Paleari's equilibrium for her favor is 4, equal to her willpower. Since she only has 2 favor, she is below her equilibrium, so she gains 1 favor, bringing her pool to 3 favor. She then flips her activation token to its gray side, showing she has completed her turn. The players have the final 2 initiative spaces, and Bronn and Brianna have yet to take a turn. Bronn complains that he has been toying with the Gore for long enough and is ready to do some serious damage. Brianna agrees to let him go next. During Bronn's beginning of turn phase, he adjusts his stance once for free, and then takes 1 stress token to adjust it 1 more time down the reckless side of his track. Bronn begins his action phase and declares he is going to use Double Strike on the Gore. It should be noted that this is not the Double Strike action card that comes with the game. It is a printout of the fixed version of the card found on Fantasy Flight Games' website. Bronn assembles his dice pool as follows. Double Strike uses weapon skill versus target defense. Weapon skill is based on strength, and Bronn's strength is 4, so he starts with 4 blue characteristic dice in his pool. But since Bronn is 2 spaces into his reckless stance, he switches out 2 of the blue die for 2 red reckless dice. Bronn is trained in weapon skills, so he adds 1 yellow expertise die to his pool. He is also specialized in weapon skill hand weapons, so he adds 1 white fortune die. Bronn has already been wounded by the Gore, so thanks to his race ability, Grudge, he adds another white fortune die. The action card itself adds 1 black misfortune die for its difficulty modifier. I tell him this will be an easy check, so he adds 1 purple die to his pool. The Gore's defense of 1 adds another black misfortune die. As a GM, I decide the Gore is more than a little aggravated with the fact that the Gore's wounds were just mended before his eyes, so I use the Gore's 2 remaining aggression points to add 2 final black misfortune dice to Bronn's pool. Thanks to his ally Joel, Bronn will be receiving 2 white fortune die from the side effect of the Ratcatcher's Threading the Needle attack, and yet another white die for the small but vicious dog's Bite and Shake trick. Bronn decides to save his fortune points. Bronn then evaluates his roll. After challenges and successes cancel out, and boons and banes cancel out, Bronn is left with 4 successes and 2 boons. Since he's successful, he places 2 recharge tokens on his Double Strike card. Bronn is now ready to calculate the damage he has dealt to the Gore. The success line says he hits with both his primary and secondary weapons. The boon side effect is +2 damage with his primary weapon. So Bronn adds 4 for his strength, 5 for his primary hand axe's damage rating, and 2 for the boons. He then subtracts 5 for the Gore's toughness and 2 for the Gore's soak value, dealing my Gore a total of 4 damage from his primary weapon. Bronn's secondary weapon will do 2 damage, as the double strike card states the boon's side effect only affects his primary weapon. So Bronn deals a total of 6 damage to my Gore, 4 from his primary weapon and 2 from his secondary weapon. I place 6 more wounds on the Gore. The Gore, with a wound threshold of 12, now has 10 wounds. It's not looking good. It is finally Brianna the Initiate's turn. During Brianna's beginning of turn phase, she adjusts her stance once for free, and then takes 2 stress tokens to adjust it 2 more times down the reckless side of her track. Brianna begins her action phase, and declares she's going to use her Seer spell on the Gore. Her power is at equilibrium, so she has 4 power, enough to cast Seer. She removes 4 power from her personal supply and assembles her dice pool. Seer is a spellcraft check versus target defense. Spellcraft relies on intelligence, so Brianna adds 3 blue characteristic dice to her pool. But since she is 3 spaces into her reckless stance, she switches out all 3 blue dice for 3 red reckless dice. Brianna is trained in the spellcraft skill, so she adds 1 yellow expertise die to her pool. Her career adds 1 white fortune die to any rank 1 or lower spellcraft checks. The action card itself adds 1 black misfortune die for its difficulty modifier. I tell her this will be an easy level difficulty check, so she adds 1 purple die to her pool. Brianna decides to use 2 of her 3 fortune points to add 2 white fortune dice to her pool. Brianna then evaluates her roll. After challenges and successes cancel out, and boons and banes cancel out, she is left with 3 successes and 1 boon. Successful, she places 5 recharge tokens on her Seer card. Brianna then calculates damage. The success line states she hit the Gore for 5 damage plus her intelligence. She applies her boon toward the +1 damage special effect on the Seer card. So Brianna takes her 3 intelligence, adds the 5 from the success line, and adds 1 for the boon for a total of 9. She then subtracts 5 for the Gore's toughness and 2 for his soak. Brianna deals a total of 2 damage to my Gore. This is just enough damage to finish him off, as 2 more wounds bring the Gore's total wounds to 12, equal to his wound threshold. Since the Gore has been defeated, I decide to remove the highest initiative track token that represents the Beastmen. Brianna then starts her end of turn phase. She removes the recharge token from her Seer action card. Then she has no power, so she adds 1 power to her personal supply towards reaching her equilibrium. Finally, she turns her activation token to its gray side and ends her turn. As the GM, I know that my Ungor henchmen are poised to flee if their leader is downed, so I decide if they survive to their next turn, they will attempt to bolt for the forest. Now that all the participants in the encounter have taken their turns, the round is over, and we return to the top of the initiative track. All the players flip their activation tokens back to their colored active side. Since the Beastman's highest marker has been removed, a player character hero will go first. The party quickly decides on their own that fire might cause the remaining Beastmen to flee, so they let Brianna go first. During Brianna's start of turn phase, she decides to leave her stance where it is, 3 deep into Reckless. She begins her action phase and declares she is going to channel power. Channel power is an unchallenged channeling action check. Channeling is based on willpower, and Brianna's willpower is 4, so she starts with 4 blue characteristic dice in her pool. But since Brianna is 3 spaces into Reckless, she replaces 3 of the blue dice with 3 red Reckless dice. She is trained in channeling, so she adds 1 yellow expertise die to her pool. She exhausts her focus talent card, called I've Seen Worse, adding 4 recharge tokens to it, allowing her to add 2 white fortune die to her pool. The card's difficulty modifier adds 1 purple challenge die. I tell her this will be an easy check, so she adds 1 additional purple die to her pool. Brianna then evaluates her roll. After challenges and successes cancel out, and boons and banes cancel out, Brianna is left with 3 successes and 2 banes. The success line states she will gain 6 power, so she adds 6 power tokens to her power pool. She started her turn with 1 power, so she now has a total of 7 power. Since her power is now higher than her equilibrium, she uses her free maneuver to contain this excess power. The 2 banes activate the card's side effect, and she suffers 1 wound. Brianna places 1 wound on her character. Brianna continues her action phase, declaring she is going to use Flame Blast on the Ungor henchmen. She removes the 6 power tokens out of her personal pool necessary to cast Flame Blast, leaving her with 1 power, and she starts assembling her dice pool. Flame Blast is an unopposed spellcraft check. Spellcraft relies on intelligence, so Brianna adds 3 blue characteristic die to her pool. Since she is 3 spaces deep into her Reckless stance, she switches out her 3 blue die for 3 red Reckless die. Brianna is trained in spellcraft skills, so she adds 1 yellow expertise die to her pool. Her career adds 1 white fortune die to any rank 1 or lower spellcraft checks. The action card itself adds 1 purple challenge die for its difficulty modifier. I tell her this will be an easy check, so she adds an additional purple die to her pool. Because she is using her Flame Blast action card, the same turn she used Channel Power, she must add another purple difficulty die to her pool. As GM, I'm very pleased with the way the group has been cooperating together during this encounter, and state that fortune is smiling down on the party. The Ungor henchmen were severely rattled by their leader's death, so I let Brianna add another white fortune die to her pool. Brianna decides to use her 1 remaining fortune point to add 1 white die to her pool. Brianna then evaluates her roll. After challenges and successes cancel out, and boons and banes cancel out, Brianna is left with 3 successes and 3 boons. She places 2 recharge tokens on her Flame Blast card. Brianna then calculates damage. The success line states she hit the Ungor for 6 plus her intelligence damage. She uses her boons towards the +1 damage +1 critical special effect on the Flame Blast card. So Brianna starts with her 3 intelligence and adds 6 from the success line. She also adds 1 for the boon. She then subtracts 4 for the Ungor's toughness and 1 for their soak. Brianna does a total of 5 damage to my Gore. Henchmen do not suffer from critical wounds in the normal fashion. Instead, the critical wound is flipped, and the henchmen suffer a number of additional wounds equal to the critical wound's severity. I add 5 wounds to the Ungor and flip 1 of the 5 due to the +1 critical from Flame Blast boon side effect. It is a deep wound card with a severity of 5, so I add 5 more wound cards. The Ungor henchmen have taken a total of 10 wounds. As per the henchmen rules on page 49 of the Game Master's Guide, the henchman's shared health is their toughness multiplied by the total number of henchmen. In this case, 4 toughness is multiplied by 4 henchmen and equals 16 shared health. Brianna's Fiery Blast takes out 2 of the 4 Ungor beastmen and still contributes 2 more points towards killing the remaining 2. Brianna wraps up her turn by removing 1 recharge token from her Seer action card and 1 recharge token from her Flame Blast card. Since she is at 1 power, she receives another power and now has a total of 2 power in her personal pool. Brianna then flips her activation token to its gray side, ending her turn. Given that the party felt the fire would frighten away the Ungor, I decide not to wait for the Ungor's turn and reward the party's ingenuity by announcing the 2 remaining singed and smoldering Ungor hightail it for the trees. The players decide not to pursue them and instead begin a rally step to bandage up and regroup. Being very pleased with the way they handled this encounter, I add a fortune marker to their fortune pool on their party card. Well, I hope this recreation of my new player group's first combat encounter was helpful. If you enjoyed it, please feel free to click on the like below and/or subscribe. Please look for my other Warhammer Fantasy roleplay videos as well as my other game reviews. I look forward to reading your comments below. Until next time, this has been We Talk a Good Game.